you lovely humans. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so grateful that you are here with me today because today, ladies and gentlemen, is October 1st. And if you know me, you know how damn excited I am that October has finally arrived. This year has been an epic shit show for all intents and purposes. But October is finally here, and I feel like there's a sense of calm and clarity that comes with the month of October. We're a month away from the election and getting all of that garbage out of everyone's hair. I'm very much looking forward to that being over. I'm not going to go into any of my opinions on that. I'm just very much looking forward to this part of the 4-year process to be over with. So, on a happy note, we are going to be talking about some of the things that just make me blissfully happy. So, in the next 31 days, I'm going to be recommending some books and songs and TV shows and movies that I absolutely love that encapsulate the feelings of the fall season and Halloween. So I hope that you guys will play along with me, that in the comments below you'll share with me some of your recommendations as well. So what I have done is I set up a prompt for every day of the month. So today's prompt was Witch's Night Out, and I'd made a board to celebrate this, but I don't think the board's gonna work out. I kind of mentioned that in one of my blogs, but it's already looking wonky. So let's go ahead and take off this day's. Let's see. It's not gonna work. I think this is gonna be a nightmare, and you can't even read it anyway. So, okay, so this is mostly gonna be for me going forward. You're not gonna see the board again. It's just for me so I can keep myself in check. Got it. So let's talk about today's song of choice. So I'm going to play a little clip of it here below. I hope you guys can hear that okay. I don't want to turn it up too loud, and I don't want copyright infringement either. So this song is called October, and it is by an artist named The Ghost in You. So The Ghost in You is a one-man band, basically. It's a gentleman named Billy Pollard, and he wrote and stars in all of his videos, of course, and the October video is absolutely spectacular. So in the box below, I will give a link to that video so you can kind of see it, but it truly encapsulates the feeling and spirit of fall. He's standing in a cornfield, and he's surrounded by, you know, all of these things that are starting to age and die, and the feeling that kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's beautiful, and I really hope that you will take a second and watch that. It will really be something special, I'm sure. There's a second video that I'm going to be visiting by Mr. Pollard, so that's going to be later in our 31 days, so keep up for that. But the very interesting thing about Billy Pollard is he is also an author and illustrator. So he wrote a children's book series called The Undead Adventures of Bone Boy and Ghost Girl. So I will show you some pictures. Maybe I'll post something up here just so you can kind of see some of the illustrations that he's created for these books. I think that the man is so insanely talented, and he's also a bit of a smartass. So I follow him on Instagram, and he is the quintessential cantankerous old man stuck in a 30, early 40-something-year-old's body. He's so funny, and I just get an immense sense of joy by his snarkiness. So if you want to follow somebody that loves Halloween and loves to tell people like it is, I would definitely recommend checking out Billy Pollard's Instagram page. So that is at The Ghost in You Music. He also has a website, and it's www.theghostinu.net. And then I will also probably post a link to his Amazon book sale of The Undead Adventures of Bone Boy and Ghost Girl, so you can kind of check out his whole catalog. But I found out about him last year. I heard another song of his that, like I said, I will be talking about later, and I absolutely fell in love. That video for that song is maybe my favorite music video I've ever seen. And that's including Aha's Take on Me and Corey Hart's Sunglasses at Night and The Warrior. So let's be serious now. This is some serious stuff. It's a great song. He's a great artist. I feel like he's an absolutely fabulous human being, so you should check him out. Now, I want to move on to a book to recommend to you guys. I'd really wanted to stick to nonfiction books. I wanted to keep it to, you know, how-to books and things like that, but I kind of ran out of my own books to recommend, and I didn't want to go on something I read on Kindle or something like that. I really wanted to have a physical copy of the book so I could show it to you. So I'm going to start this off with a book called How to Hang a Witch. It is a fiction, young adult book, I guess, that came out in 2016. This is the cover, and it's by, as you can see, Adriana Mather. Now, Adriana Mather is interesting because she has lineage in two huge events in history. So one being the Salem witch trials. Cotton Mather was her great grandfather or something to that effect. And she also had lineage to the very first Thanksgiving and to people that were on the Titanic. So she is a fascinating person all on her own. This book is absolutely incredible. It details the main character moves back to Salem, Massachusetts because her dad finds himself in a coma, and so she and her stepmother move there, and they move into their the main character's grandmother's house. The grandmother has passed away, and so they're taking over the house while the dad's in the hospital in a coma. And she finds herself meeting a group of girls that are direct ancestors to women who were hung during the Salem witch trials. And she finds out that she is related to Cotton Mather from the witch trials. So it is very, very interesting to me that this is a fiction book, but it's seeped in non-fictional topics. So the fact that she was actually related to Cotton Mather, she did her research, found out a lot of things. Cotton Mather, if you don't know who he is, he was a major character in the Salem witch trials. He was a puritanical minister, and basically he started out, he wrote a book called The Memorable Providences, and this detailed the accounts of some children that were being affected in Boston, Massachusetts, right before the Salem witch trials. And it was of a family called the Goodwins, and these children, very similar to the children in Salem, were exhibiting odd behavior. And so he detailed all this information in this book, and many people believe that that was the catalyst to the Salem witch trials. So he was a very fascinating character, to say the least. But he also not only was a part of the Salem witch trials, but he was also a part of some the smallpox inoculation and vaccination. So he was believing in vaccinations before that was even a thing. I mean, a lot of people thought he was absolutely crazy, but it's strange to think that somebody could have such beliefs about witchcraft and then also have almost opposing beliefs in vaccinations and things like that. So he's a fascinating character. You should definitely research him if you think about it. But that's a terrific book. And again, it's called How to Hang a Witch, and it's by Adriana Mather. And I got this right when it came out. It's a hardcover, obviously, but I got it at Barnes & Noble. I saw it on the shelf, was like, wow, that looks like a book for me. And I was just fascinated by it. So she also has a second book out. Well, she's got several books out, but in this series, it follows the same character, but it follows her, and she finds out that she has, like Adriana Mather, she had relatives that were on the Titanic. So again, she's using her own history and creating this work of fiction. So I think she's amazing. I really, really think that you should check this out. So it's available, like, I have the Overdrive app, and I've got Hoopla, and all those other library apps. Those books are typically available on there, either as just a Kindle book or in the audiobook format. So definitely check those out if you can. So let's move on to movies. So as the prompt said, I wanted you to name some of your favorite witch movies. So I went with 4 today. Some of them that you may have thought I was going to mention will probably come along later in my series. So don't be upset if I didn't touch on something. It may be coming still. But the first one I want to talk about is practical magic. So if you are an 80s or 90s kid like I was, you probably were absolutely enamored with the 1998 movie Practical Magic. So it stars Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman as 2 sister witches that go to live with their aunts, who are played by Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest. And the 4 characters there are so dynamic all on their own. But then you bring in a character that's such a scary antagonist. So they bring in Goran Vasinik, who is like such a creepy, awful guy. And I'm not going to go into terrible details about these movies because I'd like you to see it if you haven't. I can't believe you haven't seen Practical Magic, but if you haven't, it is a story about sisterhood and love and friendship and, you know, the town that they live in. Everyone knows that they're witches, and so everyone treats them differently. And me trying to get myself into learning about witchcraft and honing it myself, it really touches home to me about these prejudices that witches have seen, throughout time. Salem witch trials and the trials in England way before Salem was even a blip on the radar. But yeah, and even into modern day, people see the word witch and there's automatically a stigma placed on that word. So these women experience that from the town that they live in, but they all in the end, kind of band together to defeat this crazy foe. So I definitely think you should check out Practical Magic. The second movie I want to talk about is The Witches. So it's the 1990 movie with the Queen Witch, Angelica Houston. So I saw that movie as a child. I was born in early 1980s, so it was right up my alley coming out. I read the Roald Dahl book, which was terrifying all by itself. But that movie, oh man, I have now, as a 30-plus-year-old woman, I have conflicting feelings about that movie because it paints witches, again, like in Practical Magic, in such an unflattering light. And I sometimes feel bad about that, but I also, I don't know, there's a magic to that movie all on its own. And Angelica Houston is extraordinary as the Grand High Witch. So if you haven't seen that movie, I don't know what I can say to make you want to see it, except that it's utterly brilliant. She is such a force. The 2 main characters are a grandmother and a grandson. The grandson goes to live with his grandmother and grandfather because his parents were killed in a car accident. So I think it's set in like Sweden or Norway. I can't remember now. I'm really sorry about that. I'll try and see if I can remember to look it up, and then I'll make a little note in the video. But so he goes to live with his grandmother, and he learns about witches from her because she has herself encountered witches throughout her life. There is one story that stuck with me my whole life about a little girl named Erica that gets stuck in a painting. A witch sticks her in this painting, and she lives there for the rest of her life. She ages and dies in this painting. And I remember being a little kid, and I would see portraits on people's walls, and I would see, kids, drawn into these pictures, and it would scare me to death because I was so convinced that was a child in that painting. So it's a movie that, especially as a kid, and I think I've said this before, but things that you see or read as a kid stick with you more so than anything else for the rest of your life. And I think that movie has struck a chord in me that has been playing ever since I was a kid, and I love it. So, like I said, I have mixed feelings about it now as I'm trying to get into witchcraft, but I still love it. I can't help it. All these movies about witches they're always painted in an unflattering light. I don't think that there's any movie about a witch that shows them as these extraordinary, powerful women. Even witches in like Sleepy Hollow, those 2 women, and the one turns into a wicked witch. And then, there's just, there's endless. I mean, besides Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz, there's not really a whole lot of good witches. I mean, look at Hocus Pocus. Come on. 3 awful witches that are sucking the lives out of children. So anyway, I'm not going to mention Hocus Pocus again, though, because that's not for today. But the third movie I want to talk about is one called A Season with the Witch. And I have the DVD right here. I don't know if anybody's even seen this. I feel like this kind of blipped on the radar and then disappeared. So this movie came out in 2010. I was working at the movie theater at the time, so that's probably the only reason why I saw this to begin with, because I probably would have been like, Nicolas Cage, oh, pass. So it stars Nicolas Cage and Ron Perlman, and they are people living through the Crusades. You know, they are trying to vanquish demons and witches throughout Europe and beyond. And they have a crisis of conscience when they see all these people that they're killing, and so they try to distance themselves from the church. They get put in jail, and as a final reprieve, they are set to take this woman that they have considered a witch, and they're taking her to either be executed or to go to a monastery. I can't remember what the real premise was, but again, not a happy tale about witches. But it's absolutely enthralling. I love this story. And honestly, the beginning scene in this movie scared the living hell out of me. So there are very few things that actually scare me, but the opening scene is they are drowning witches. So they've hung these women and then they drown them to ensure that they're dead. And there is a jump scare in there that absolutely scared me to death. So right out of the gate, I almost got up and left. I was so scared. But look, I mean, watching it now, it's not too bad, but it still freaks me out a little bit, to be completely honest. So if you see it like on streaming somewhere, I would recommend watching it. It's a good movie for what it is, but like I said, it's Nick Cage and Ron Perlman are in it. Very enjoyable, timeless kind of tale about the Crusades and witches in general. So there's that movie. The fourth one I want to talk about, I'm sure you guys were probably going to expect me to talk about this one, but it is the 1996 movie, The Craft, you guys. The Craft! Again, as a early 80s kid growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, this movie was so ingrained in my brain. I remember seeing this. This came out the same year that Scream came out. So you can imagine it was a banner year for Neve Campbell. So this movie stars Neve Campbell and Fairuza Balk and Rachel True and Robin Tunney. And they are 4 women that come together because they have a shared bond. They're all witches. And if you've not seen this movie, man, you're just missing out because it's so good. And yesterday, funnily enough, no, 2 days ago, Blumhouse released a trailer. They are doing a new, not necessarily a reboot of The Craft. It's called The Craft Legacy, but it's going to be kind of continuing on from where The Craft left off, and it's going on with 4 new women. So I'm not too sure if we're going to get any cameos from any of these girls, except for in the trailer, they do show a Polaroid of Fairuza Balk as Nancy. So that was kind of exciting. It's kind of a glittery looking tale, akin to like a Twilight werewolf. These look like glittery witches, and I'm not too sure how I feel about it. It's kind of like a CW take on witchcraft, kind of like that new Charmed series they came out with. I'm gonna hold my opinions on that, but The Craft was so important to me. This part of my life, you know, the 90s were bringing out all of these movies that I loved so much. Empire Records and Can't Hardly Wait and The Craft and Scream and all of these movies that are just ingrained in me forever. But if you have the opportunity to see it, I think that they are showing it on TV currently. Maybe on, I think it was supposed to be on Freeform on their 31 Days of Halloween. Insanely enough, because they put garbage on there normally. I'm sorry. They put the same movies on and they show them over and over and over again. Every year, without fail. They keep acting like they're not going to do it, but they do. And this year they're not showing Paranorman, so I don't know what the heck they're thinking, but anyway. So, if you've not seen Practical Magic, it should be airing on Freeform at some point. I think it'll probably be showing on maybe Sci-Fi or maybe A&E. So take a look at your dials and see what they're going to be. On your dials? What am I, 80? Take a look at the TV guide and figure out when they're showing it. So you won't be disappointed. The movie also has Skeet Ulrich, who was also in Scream with Neve Campbell, and Breckin Meyer, who was first really famous from Clueless. And then he was in a couple other films that were, you know, typical teen 90s films, but it's such a great cast. It's such a great movie, and it really shows the power of, you know, when you get 4 powerful women together and how that power can either take you to a good place or a very, very dark place. So I wholeheartedly recommend that movie. Fairuza Balk is insane in that movie. Fairuza Balk is one of the most amazing women that have ever lived. And on that vein, I'm going to mention one more movie. So Fairuza Balk, when she was a kid, was in a movie called The Worst Witch. So she's kind of been in witch movies her whole life. And I guess that witch movie, I guess I can take it back a little bit, reel in and say that she was pretty much a good witch. She kind of had a bad rap, but she was wonderful. I love that movie so much. So if you've not seen The Worst Witch, it has a cameo from Tim Curry in it. That is the most magical thing. So check that movie out as well. Fairuza was also in a movie called Return to Oz. Dear God, if you've not seen that movie, it is not your typical Wizard of Oz. I mean, I know some people were scared about the Wizard of Oz when they were kids, but Return to Oz was nightmare fuel. They had the Wheelers, they had Mombi, who could literally take her head off and then put on other servants that she must have murdered them, took their heads, and then she just swaps them whenever she wants to change up her look. Today we get haircuts and dye her hair, and she just switched her head around. It's fine. That's what they did. Anyway, it's crazy. But if you've not seen Return to Oz, it is on Disney Plus. So I definitely recommend that movie. It is super scary, but also a wonderful revisit to Oz in a much different time. So definitely recommend that as well. I went on a tangent. I was only supposed to recommend a couple and I went with like 6. Also Teen Witch, if you're gonna watch a weird 80s movie about witchcraft, you could go with Teen Witch too. So that one maybe put on the bottom of the pile, but I think you should still see it regardless. And then you can sing Top That for the rest of your life, because that song will get stuck in your head forever. So, last thing I want to talk about today is my TV show recommendation. So that is the incredible Sci-Fi Channel series, Haven. And I've got the first season here. This is what it looks like. So you've got the main character, Audrey Parker, who is an FBI agent who comes to town because she's been hearing about these strange occurrences happening in this small town of Haven, Maine. And then you've got the police chief's son, who's also a cop in town, and that's Nathan Warnos. And so she meets Nathan, and they start investigating stuff. The other third guy on here is Eric Balfour, and he plays Duke Crocker. So he's kind of the antagonist character to Nathan's character, but the 3 of them are absolutely terrific together. This ran for 5 seasons. It went from 2010 to 2015, and I absolutely loved this series. So the whole premise of the story came actually from a Stephen King novella called The Colorado Kid, and that is seeped throughout the entire series. If you've not read the novella, I personally haven't. I know I'm a terrible Stephen King fan, but I have not read Colorado Kid. I've taken it out of the library, and I just have not been able to get through it. So I will eventually. But it's fabulous. All 5 seasons, I was enamored with it. So if you have the time and you want to start a new television series, I recommend Haven very highly. I think that it's currently streaming still on Netflix and Hulu. So you've got your options there. DVD sets are also pretty cheap, so if you wanted to buy those through Amazon or something along those lines, you could do that. One other thing I want to mention about with Haven, one of my favorite movies growing up was the Anne of Green Gables miniseries that came out in the early to mid 80s. And Jonathan Crombie played Gilbert Blythe, who was the main male character in that movie. And I loved Gilbert my whole life. And the very last thing that he ever did was actually in the final season of Haven. He was in an episode called Just Passing Through, and he played one of the older characters as a younger man. So that was his last performance. He passed away back in 2016, I think, on April 15th from a aneurysm, I think. So it was a very bad day, very sad. I still am sad about that. But I love that we have that last hurrah with him, and it was in Haven, because I loved Haven so much, and that was a very special thing for me to see, because I think it aired after he had passed away, so it was kind of incredible. Anyway, so recommend highly. Again, let's go through what we've got. Song, we're gonna say October by The Ghost in You, Billy Pollard, and check out his children's book, The Undead Adventures of Bone Boy and Ghost Girl. I think he actually has a follow-up book out now too. You can find that on Amazon. And then I want you to check out How to Hang a Witch, again by Adriana Mather. This guy right here. Easy to find. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at barnesandnoble.com if you want to spend a bunch of money, because you know they're so expensive. Or you can get them on eBay or anything like that. They're always available at any of those platforms. Any, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Borders, you got it. And then movies, Practical Magic, The Witches, Season of the Witch, The Craft, and then Teen Witch, and Return to Oz, and The Worst Witch. Added those on at the end. And then TV show, again, make sure that you check out Haven. And again, like I said, this is streaming, I'm pretty sure, on Netflix still, and I think it's also available on Hulu. So check all those items off your list, or add them to your list if they're not there, because they're all absolutely incredible. So final thing I want to talk about is tomorrow's prompt. So tomorrow, I want you guys to tell me, where is my mummy? So I want to hear about your favorite movies in regards to mummies and Egyptology and spooky hieroglyphics and things like that. So tell me about your favorite mummy movies tomorrow, and I will see you right here, same time, same place. So I hope you guys are well, and I will see your beautiful faces tomorrow. Bye.